Adam Yang is with Signal49. He'll do a better job explaining kind of what Signal49, formerly Conference Board of Canada, is all about. But I'm a big fan of the work they do and specifically the research they do. So I approached them, I guess, probably around this time last year and said, you guys are constantly creating resources around kind of the skills that Canadians need to move our economy forward and put themselves in the best place to succeed. It would be amazing if our audience of guidance counselors and careers teachers and students were able to benefit from those resources as well. Would you guys be open to coming in and talking to us, talking to our community? So this is the fourth kind of webinar we've done with Signal 49 this school year, the fourth of four. They've all been very well received. We do have recordings, and actually I'll make sure that they get included in the recap email to this afterwards if you want to check them out. And hopefully Signal 49 will be up for doing this again next year and running it back. But today is our final one. We're going to talk about careers that build Canada's future, green skills, skilled trades, and construction. Adam, why don't you go ahead, introduce yourself, and let the people know what they're in store for today. And then, just as a last piece of housekeeping for everybody, guys, we're scheduled for half an hour. If it goes a couple minutes over, that's okay. Adam said he's happy to stick around and answer questions towards the end. Obviously, we respect your time. We know fires are always coming up that you guys have to deal with, so do as you need to. This is being recorded. It will be shared. But if you have questions, throw them in the chat so we can have a little conversation about it towards the end of it. All right, all yours, Adam.
Thanks, Damien, and hello, everyone. Thank you so much for joining today's session. Happy World Cup kickoff day. I'm very excited. I'm a huge soccer fan, so good time to be doing this. So my name's Adam Vanzella Yang. I'm a senior research associate with Signal49 Research, and I'm excited to present today on careers that build Canada's future. So, so I'll discuss some of our research findings on green skills, skilled trades, and construction, and how these relate to promising jobs for the next generation of workers. So the projects I will discuss today are funded by the Government of Canada's Future Skills Program through the Future Skills Center. Center. So FSC's mission is to drive innovation and skills development to better prepare Canadians for the future of work. And just a quick overview of who we are at Signal 49 before we begin. So Signal 49 is Canada's leading independent organization for applied research. We've been around since 1954, and we work across areas such as economics, health, human resources, and sustainability, among others listed here. I'm with the Education and Skills team, and we conduct research on workplace skills needs and the education and training systems required to meet them. Today, I'll begin by talking about the context behind our recent projects on green skills and decarbonization. Then I'll present key findings from these projects. And towards the end, I'll share some actionable insights specifically tailored to this audience. If you've seen the reports, there are different actionable insights there. But I wanted to kind of tailor them so that it's relevant to you. And hopefully, we'll have some time toward the end for a quick Q&A as well. So feel free to drop your questions in the chat. Could be during the presentation as well, and I'll get to them later on. Okay, so let's get started. So Canada is seeking to achieve net zero by 2050. And to get there, we need workers to build and maintain our infrastructure. So if we think of wind turbines, nuclear power plants, carbon capture facilities, grid upgrades, all of that kind of stuff requires highly skilled individuals. And not only that, we also need people with green skills across all sectors, not just construction, to lead and manage the green transition across the broader economy. So what are green skills? That's a tricky one. There's no perfect definition. Green skills are defined in different ways according to different contexts. So from specific industry standards or credentials, all the way to broader mindsets aimed at sustainable futures. But to guide our projects, we used UNIDO's broader definition, which defines green skills as the knowledge, abilities, values, and attitudes needed to live in, develop, and support a sustainable and resource-efficient society. There are benefits and drawbacks of using such a broad definition, and I'll get a bit more on that later. So with all that in mind, we wanted to know what's the demand for green skills in the Canadian job market and how is it projected to evolve? And because construction is so central to Canada's net zero goals, we took a deeper dive into the sector to look at which roles would see an increase in demand as Canada rolls out the emissions reduction plan. And we also wanted to gain a fuller understanding of the workforce development challenges in the sector. So we also asked, how can we ensure we'll have the workers to build and maintain Canada's infrastructure? So to look at demand for green skills in the labor market, we did an analysis of jobs posted online in 2023 using the vicinity jobs tools and databases, which are now part of Signal 49. So vicinity jobs allows us to look at every job, virtually every job posted online, and to extract, categorize, and determine the prevalence of skills from these job postings. We then used our advanced forecasting tools to specifically look at the construction sector and the labor demand in two scenarios, two future scenarios. So one with the emissions reduction plan. So one is a decarbonizing scenario, and the other one is one without the ERP, just a baseline comparison scenario. We then interviewed industry and higher education leaders to acquire insights directly from the field and to inform actionable recommendations. Okay, so let's move on to an overview of the key findings from these two projects. So green skills demand uh, is not yet widespread, but it's projected to grow. So we found that just over 35,000 jobs required green skills in 2023. That's about just over 1% of all jobs. But some of the top roles where green skills are required, such as construction managers and civil engineers, they're expected to experience up to 40% growth by 2040. And I'll note that this 1% is likely an underestimate. So as I mentioned earlier, green skills are broad. Many green skills will not show up in job descriptions and maybe sort of a hidden latent expectation from employers. So green jobs are likely much more prevalent than we think. Here are the top green skills appearing in job descriptions. So those related to water management and clean energy lead the list, but we also see the importance of specific industry recognized standards and credentials such as ISO 14000 and LEED. So obtaining training and certifications in these areas can be an effective way to stand out. There is variation by region in terms of where green skills are needed. So Ontario leads in terms of the total number of jobs requiring green skills, followed by BC. But in relative terms, the share of jobs requiring green skills is highest in the Northwest Territories and in Nova Scotia. There's also variation by sector. So high prevalence in sectors like mining, oil and gas, utilities, professional services, public administration, manufacturing, and construction. These are the top sectors that appear in terms of demand for green skills. And I mentioned that we took a deeper dive into the construction sector specifically, since it's the sector that's responsible for building and maintaining Canada's infrastructure for net zero. So when we narrow in on the sector, we find that sustainable infrastructure roles are projected to rise. So we projected the demand for roles with and without the emissions reduction plan. And we found that actually in both scenarios, there will be an increase in demand for pretty much all construction roles. But the implementation of the ERP will lead to an even greater increase in roles related to water management and clean energy. So it's consistent here with what we found in the earlier Green Skills project. And what you see here in this chart is the expected increase in roles relative to the baseline comparison scenario without the ERP. We also found that the ERP will boost employment potential in infrastructure and utility trades. So this chart here shows occupations that will make up a larger share of the economy under the ERP, again, relative to the baseline scenario. So we can see that roles such as heavy equipment operators, for example, will gain increasing importance in a decarbonizing economy. Okay, so now let's move on to some key themes from our conversations with stakeholders. So we heard a lot about the various cultural narratives surrounding the trades, including some outdated ones that still linger. But most people we've spoken to emphasize that the trades are increasingly seen as modern, resilient, and essential careers for Canada's future. And not to mention that they're high paying as well in a time where the labor market is very uncertain, especially for young people. So there's a strong sense that we have to build on this momentum. And one of the ways to do so, according to many people we spoke with, is to promote skilled trades education and training in the K-12 space, ideally even before high school. That's when we can really instill the notion that these are careers of the future and prevent outdated perceptions to be reproduced across generations. Uh, so here's a quote exemplifying the dynamic nature of careers in the sector. So this construction company director emphasized job security and the opportunity to move across different roles at different stages of a project's life cycle. Others emphasized the possibility of taking on supervisory and managerial roles, which are also in great demand. So it's these kinds of narratives that we need to continue to push forward. But there are many challenges as well that are slowing down this momentum. This is one that came up a lot in our discussion with higher education leaders. So lack of training, that's a recurrent theme. Many trades programs are government regulated, and post-secondary leaders sometimes expressed frustration with the time that it takes for the curriculum to be updated. And as a result, we heard that the curriculum can be up to 10 to 15 years behind. But some post-secondary institutions have found creative solutions to work around this issue. For example, the British Columbia Institute of Technology offers a self-directed program, which has quote unquote forward-looking stuff. So they offer this for those who are already certified journey persons or in the final stages of their apprenticeship. And it's a model that other schools are looking to explore and implement as well. So these are not meant to be micro-credentials that replace traditional training, but rather supplement it. And it's a great way for institutions to show that they're up to date, even if the regulated curriculum is behind. And it also offers learners a clear pathway to learning skills that meet industry requirements. Here's an example of how post-secondary training gaps directly impact sustainability efforts. So this college dean here is describing how electric vehicles are not incorporated into automotive programs. So teachers have to improvise if they're keen on teaching that, but learners are typically left on their own to figure it out. And he tells us how that's often the case for other technologies as well. From the industry side, we heard that employers do recognize the importance of training and upskilling, but they face a tension between long-term skills development and short-term productivity needs. So this applies to both journey persons who are perhaps looking to upskill, as well as apprentices that need to leave work to complete their in-school training. And all this points to the need for more flexible training models, including ones that allow workers to pursue training without leaving the job site uh, or without staying away from the job site for too long. In this quote here, we can see a key challenge surrounding the current training model. So block release is still the dominant model in Canada. So this is where workers leave the job site for an extended period of time to complete the in-class portion of their apprenticeship. This causes job site disruptions and again points to the need for more flexible alternatives. But the problem is that our employment insurance rules do not easily support shorter absences like the data release model. So any changes that promote shorter absences would need to be accompanied by changes in EI eligibility to be fully effective. So again, these findings perhaps not directly of interest, but I always find it interesting to gain a sense of what's going on in the industry, and this is something uh, that was highly prevalent in our conversations with industry stakeholders. We also heard a lot about the importance of social and emotional skills. So technical skills are obviously important, but other things like leadership, communication, and collaboration were mentioned as increasingly crucial in job sites. And this makes sense, especially given that there's also growing demand for supervisory and managerial roles within the construction sector. And academic skills were also emphasized as key, since these skills allow people to work with increasingly advanced tools and systems. It's no longer the case that one learns a craft and does it the same way for their entire career. Workers need a strong foundation to build upon, as well as willingness to constantly adapt to technologies that are ever more complex. So this quote here showcases upskilling in the context of decarbonization. So this construction company director is telling us how a greening economy will impact many trades by requiring workers to develop new skills to use low carbon materials, technologies, and equipment. Others also have told us about the expectation that workers will need to learn and comply with evolving standards and regulations. Okay, now let's move on to the actionable insights. So my first recommendation based on our research is to encourage students to build green skills along any chosen career path. So green skills are not limited to niche environmental careers. They pretty much permeate all sectors, especially those that are highly sought after. And I'll give you an example. So in finance, for example, ESG and green investment portfolios are now mainstream. This was not the case a few decades ago. In business, corporate social responsibility also became an integral part of the philosophy of many organizations. So that's another way through which uh, green skills kind of permeate that sector. So there's a high chance that any job will have some sustainability angle to it. So uh, if students cultivate green skills along any path, they'll be in a good position to succeed. My second and related recommendation is to coach students to signal green skills in professional settings, such as interviews and networking events. So green skills are not always listed in job descriptions, but they may be a latent expectation from employers or simply an, a welcomed extra thing to have. So encouraging students to showcase their green skills, even when these are not explicitly stated as a requirement, may be beneficial to them as they enter the labor market. My third recommendation is to reposition trades as first choice careers. So you probably heard this one before, but hopefully uh, what I say here resonates. So trades are not fallback careers for those who cannot follow academic paths. This is an old narrative. These are increasingly complex roles that require a wide range of problem-solving skills as well as knowledge of science and technology, not to mention that they offer prospects of high earnings, job stability, and they often lead to management and leadership roles as well. So it's very versatile and very dynamic careers. And what I suggest here is changing the angle from which we see this. So instead of thinking of careers first, we can think of skills first. This is something that my colleague Jess talks about a lot. So if you try to identify what a student is good at, and there's things like problem solving, science, hands-on learning, leadership, they'll likely be a good fit for the trades. So before I move on to the discussion, I'll mention the reports that have been published here. I'll post them in the chat as well. So I'm trying to copy and paste, but I'll do that later. It's switching slides. So we have 4 reports on this. You're welcome to check them out. They're free to access. I'll post them in the chat later. And I think we're early, so that's great. We can open it up for questions, and I see that there are some in the chat as well.
Let's do it.
Yeah,
Okay.
so let me just okay.
Thank you, Adam. And again, Adam's showing his email on the screen, guys. So if anybody wants to follow up, he's made himself available. Thank you. Um, yeah, I mean, let's start with Daria's questions. Just throw it in, right? The people in this audience are going to be working with largely high school age students. So thinking about, if you're having a conversation with one of them, what is it you can actually do to support them in, being aware of the skills that they're already developing and how those can be reframed as green skills, like you said in your actionable insight number two, but also just net new developing green skills. Like if you thought about it from, a guidance counselor perspective, how do you
Yeah,
envision that conversation going?
yeah, I think science-based projects are a good way to do this. I think there is likely a green skills dimension to any. I've been out of high school for a long time, so I don't remember what kinds of projects students do. But looking back, I imagine that science-related projects have they touch on green skills on some way or another. So I guess encouraging students to apply whatever they're learning in science class to themes around sustainability. I'm sure teachers are already trying to make that connection since it's such an important topic for students and for the workforce for everyone essentially. So uh, just encouraging students to think of those projects and activities as a green skill, as developing green skills, and not just coursework, not just science narrowly applied. And in terms of certifications, geography as well, absolutely. Yeah, that's a good one. Certifications they can access and complete. So maybe this is, I'm not sure for at the high school level, but perhaps a little later on, it's something that they can kind of work towards. I mentioned that specific standards and certifications from the industry side, things like LEED, ISO 14000, these pop up a lot in job descriptions. They're in the top skills, top green skills that show up. So if they're looking for uh, concrete credentials on this, those are potential avenues to pursue. Yes, absolutely. Sustainability is a part of science, and I think that sometimes we don't think of it that way, but it is absolutely part of science. So that's one thing that could be reinforced in conversation with students. Okay, so let me just read Shauna's question. So school board and all my school are in remote First Nation communities. I prepare grade 7 for high school and building capacity. Our students love the idea of trades. Great. Do you have any contacts, links that would encourage youth to think green or promote the trades virtually? The one thing that comes to mind are so there's an organization called I think they're called Honor the Work or something like that. They
Yeah.
have yeah, that's the first one that came to mind. They have what they call STEAM kits, so they're kind of curriculum-based kits that allow for teachers to integrate trades teaching uh, directly. Maybe I don't know much about it, but it I've only I heard that they're really successful. Do you know more about them, Damien? Do you want to
Yeah, a little
add on
bit.
that? Yeah.
I know their founder, her name's
Yeah.
Angela.
Hmm.
It's I still won't. I'll put her email in because I know she'd be happy to talk to anybody. This audience might be working with students who are a little bit older. They typically I think work with grade or K to 5. And yes, they have these STEAM kits, but she's also very well connected with industry and the skilled trades and construction environments because they're the ones that are largely funding these projects. Another one, Shauna, depending on which province you're in, the skills, like Skills BC or Skills Ontario, those are good groups to reach out to. Like we were just at the Skills Canada national competition, and each province and territory has its own individual organization for skills, and they're, very well connected to the companies, but also organizations that are probably more local that would be able to connect with your students and talk about specific opportunities. But for anyone working with younger students, particularly, check out on our work. It's very cool. All right, guys. Does anybody have any other questions for Adam while we have him? I guess one top of my mind, Adam, from the research that you guys have done, do you know if you've come across any like post secondaries that are kind of specifically leaning into the lens of green skills and applying that to any of their programming or
Yeah.
promoting? Yeah.
Yeah. When we interviewed higher education leaders, we many of them told us that they try to embed green skills teaching across various program areas, not just those that are related to sustainability or environmental science.
Okay.
So that's the notion of green skills as a broader thing, as a broader mindset. So I can think of a few examples from the interviews. So we've spoken to statistics and calculus program leaders who incorporate these narratives into like problem sets so that students can think of it uh, as areas where they can apply these math skills, these stat skills, and also in English, in history, environmental history. There are people who are interested in integrating that into their history uh, courses, even if it's not explicitly sort of part of the course, or in English and literature classes, trying to think of sustainability themes and how they evolve in certain areas of literature throughout throughout history, I guess. So
Hmm.
these are ways that instructors uh, do that, oftentimes out of their own initiative, but there are top-down kind of mandates as well. So most institutions recognize the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals, and they make an effort to kind of repeat them in discussions around program planning. So there is that top-down dimension as well.
Okay. Do you know if that applies to industry as well? It's kind of Charlene's question, right? Like, or at least the people behind the training. What's being done to update trades training to include more green skills, and are the leaders in
I
these training programs paying attention to it? Like, it sounds like you're saying at the post-secondary, the individuals are. Do you know? Did you learn about the training programs?
Yeah, so I think it's definitely now part of the discussion. So people who deliver training on the post-secondary side uh, for the trades, they are well aware of this, but there's this kind of this tension with provincial agencies that regulate the curriculum because uh, their curricular audit takes very long and it permeates outward and it delays, and there's always kind of a gap between what is relevant to teach and to train people in and what's actually needed in the labor market. So it's definitely part of the discussion. Perhaps the folks outside of post-secondary are a bit more advanced in that realm. So of course, trades training occurs outside of the post-secondary space as well, and they have I think the benefit of working around of teaching things in a more flexible way. But the trades curriculum is largely mandated by the province, and they're slow to update. So that's a huge barrier
Mhm.
regarding updating uh, trades training, especially in regards to green skills.
Sounds about right. Hopefully things will change quickly and consistently. Sounds like there's a lot of individuals already that are recognizing the need to incorporate this as part of their programming already. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Awesome. Okay, guys. Well, if we don't have any more questions, then we're gonna stick right to our timeline and wrap this thing up right at 12 Eastern, 9 Pacific. So thank you everybody for making time to come out today. Again, we'll follow up with the recording so you can share with your colleagues and include previous recordings from Adam's colleagues at Signal49 from the series this school year. And make sure to check out Signal49 on social. They have a newsletter as well you can follow. There's tons of great resources just to brush up and stay on top of this stuff as well, so you can have the most informed conversations with your students. Adam, thank you. Thank you and the team. Educators, thank you for everything you're doing. And I hope everybody has a great finish to your week and go Canada. Okay,
Thank you
bye
so
guys.
much, everyone. Have a good rest of the day. Bye bye.
Bye.